Chapter 8. The Origin of Demonic States. At that time, the Tathagata was preparing to leave the Dharma seat. From the lion throne, he extended his hand and placed it on a small table wrought of the 7 precious things. But then he turned his body, which was the color of purple golden mountains, and leaned back, saying to everyone in the assembly and to Ananda, "Those of you with more to learn, those enlightened by conditions, and those who are hearers, have now turned your minds to pursue the attainment of Supreme Body, the unsurpassed, wonderful enlightenment. I have already taught you the true method of cultivation. You are still not aware of the subtle demonic events that can occur when you cultivate shamatha and vipassana. If you cannot recognize a demonic state when it appears, it is because the cleansing of your mind has not been proper. You will then be engulfed by deviant views. You may be troubled by a demon from your own skandhas or a demon from the heavens, or if you may be possessed by a ghost or spirit, or you may encounter a Lee ghost or a May ghost. If your mind is not clear, you will mistake a thief for your own son. It is also possible to feel satisfied after a small accomplishment, like the unlearned bhikshu who reached the 4th dhyana and claimed that he had realized sagehood. When his celestial reward ended and the signs of decay appeared, he slandered Arhatship as being subject to birth and death, and thus he fell into the Avashi hell. You should pay attention. I will now explain this for you in detail. Ananda stood up, and with the others in the assembly who had more to learn, bowed joyfully. They quieted themselves in order to listen to the compassionate instruction. The Buddha told Ananda and the whole assembly, "You should know that the 12 categories of beings in this world of outflows are endowed with a wonderfully bright fundamental and enlightenment. The enlightened perfect substance of the mind, which is not different from that of the Buddhas of the 10 directions. Due to the fault of false thinking and confusion about the truth, infatuation arises and makes your confusion all pervasive. Consequently, an emptiness appears once come into being as that confusion is ceaselessly transformed. Therefore, the lands that are not without outflows, as numerous as motes of dust throughout the 10 directions, are all created as a result of confusion, dullness, and false thinking. You should know that the space created in your mind is like a wisp of cloud that dots the vast sky. How much smaller must all the worlds within that space be? If even one person among you finds the truth and returns to the source, then all of space in the 10 directions is obliterated. How could the worlds within that space fail to be destroyed as well? When you cultivate dhyana and attain samadhi, your mind tallies with the minds of the Bodhisattvas and the great Arhats of the 10 directions who are free of outflows, and you abide in a state of profound purity. All the kings of demons, the ghosts and spirits, and the ordinary gods see their palaces collapse for no apparent reason. The earthquakes and all the creatures in the water, on the land, and in the air without exception are frightened. Yet the ordinary people who are sunk in deep confusion remain unaware of these changes. All these beings have 5 kinds of spiritual powers. They lack only freedom from outflows because they are still attached to worldly passions. How could they allow you to destroy their palaces? That is why the ghosts, spirits, celestial demons, sprites, and goblins come to disturb you when you are in samadhi. Although these demons possess tremendous enmity, they are in the grip of their worldly passions, while you are within wonderful enlightenment. They cannot affect you any more than a blowing wind can affect light, or a knife can cut through water. You are like boiling water, while the demons are like solid ice, which in the presence of heat soon melts away. Since they rely exclusively on spiritual powers, they are like mere guests. They can succeed in their destructiveness through your mind, which is the host of the five skandhas. In the host becomes confused. The guests will be able to do as they please. When you are in dhyana, awakened, aware, and free of delusion, their demonic deeds can do nothing to you. As the skandhas dissolve, you enter the light. All those dragon odds depend upon dark energy. Since light can destroy darkness, they would be destroyed if they drew near you. How could they dare linger and try to disrupt your dhyana samadhi? If they were not clear and aware, but were confused by the skandhas, then you, Ananda, would surely become one of the demons. You would turn into a demonic being. Your encounter with Mataji's daughter was a minor incident. She cast a spell on you to make you break the Buddha's moral precepts. Still, among the 80,000 modes of conduct, you violated only one precept because your mind was pure or was not lost. This would be an attempt to completely destroy your precious enlightenment. Were it to succeed, you would become like the family of a senior government official who is suddenly exiled. His family wanders, bereft and alone, without no one to pity or rescue them. Ananda, you should know that as a cultivator sits in the Bodhimanda, he is doing away with all thoughts. When his thoughts come to an end, there will be nothing to his mind. This state of pure clarity will stay the same whether in movement or stillness, in remembrance or forgetfulness. When he dwells in this place and enters samadhi, he is like a person with clear vision who finds himself in total darkness. Although his nature is wonderfully pure, his mind is not yet illuminated. This is the region of the form skandha. If his eyes become clear, he will then experience the 10 directions as an open expanse, and the darkness will be gone. This is the end of the form skandha. He will then be able to transcend the turbidity of kampas. Contemplating the cause of the form skandha, one sees that four stars of solidity are its source. Ananda, at this point, as the person intently investigates that wondrous brightness, the four elements will no longer function together, and soon the body will be able to transcend obstructions. This state is called the pure brightness merging into the environment. It is a temporary state in the course of cultivation and does not indicate sagehood. If he does not think he has become a sage, then this will be a good state. But if he considers himself a sage, then he will be vulnerable to demons' influence. Further, Ananda, as the person uses his mind to intently investigate that wondrous light, the light will pervade his body. Suddenly, he will be able to extract intestinal worms from his own body, yet his body will remain intact and unharmed. This state is called the pure light surging through one's physical body. It is a temporary state in the course of intense practice and does not indicate sagehood. If he does not think he has become a sage, then this will be a good state. But if he considers himself a sage, then he will be vulnerable to demon's influence. Further, as the person uses his mind to intently investigate inside and outside, his physical and spiritual souls, intellect, will, essence, and spirit will be able to interact with one another without affecting his body. They will take turns as host and guest. Then they may suddenly hear the Dhamma being spoken in space, or perhaps he will hear esoteric truths being pronounced simultaneously throughout the 10 directions. This state is called the essence and souls alternately separating and uniting, and the planting of good seeds. It is a temporary state and does not indicate sagehood. If he does not think he has become a sage, then this will be a good state. But if he considers himself a sage, then he will be vulnerable to the demon's influence. Further, when the person's mind becomes clear, unveiled, bright, and penetrating, an internal light will shine forth and turn everything in the 10 directions into the color of Jambu-riven gold. All the various species of beings will be transformed into Tathagatas. Suddenly, he will see Vairochana Buddha seated upon a platform of celestial light, surrounded by 1,000 Buddhas who simultaneously appear upon lotus blossoms in 100 million lands. This state is called the mind and soul being instilled with spiritual awareness. When he has investigated to the point of clarity, the light of his mind will shine upon all worlds. This is a temporary state and does not indicate sagehood. If he does not think he has become a sage, then this will be a good state. But if he considers himself a sage, then he will be vulnerable to the demon's influence. Further, as the person uses his mind to intently investigate that wondrous light, he will contemplate without pause, restraining and subduing his mind so that it does not go to extremes. Suddenly, the space in the 10 directions may take on the colors of the 7 precious things, or the colors of 100 precious things, which simultaneously pervade everywhere without hindering one another. The blues, yellows, reds, and whites will each be clearly apparent. This state is called excessive subduing the mind. It is a temporary state and does not indicate sagehood. If he does not think he has become a sage, then this will be a good state. But if he considers himself a sage, then he will be vulnerable to the demon's influence. Further, as the person uses his mind to investigate with a clear discernment until the pure light no longer disperses, he will suddenly be able to see various things appear in the dark room at night, just as if it were daytime, while the objects that were already in the room do not disappear. This state is called refining the mind and purifying the vision until one is able to see in the dark. It is a temporary state and does not indicate sagehood. If he does not think he has become a sage, then this will be a good state. But if he considers himself a sage, then he will be vulnerable to the demon's influence.